kind of go through this is the first time we've done a subcommittee for the commission, and so this is a new process for everybody. So just a reminder, this is a public meeting, and so it is being recorded and the chat has been turned off. So for the three of you, the three commissioners here, our conversation is just going to kind of be between us. If there's any members of the public, I don't have space yet in this particular meeting for public comment, but if there's any people in the public that would like to make a comment at the end, we can make space to do so. So today's meeting is just really the purpose is to kind of set up what is going to happen in the next meeting, which is on the 15th, which is where kind of the decision making is going to be had for the recommendations for the commission. I do want to note, we're not presenting this to the larger commission until July. And so if on Friday we realize through discussion, next Friday, through discussion, that we are going to need another meeting, we can schedule one. Okay. Initially we thought we were going in June, realized that the turnaround would be like 2 days. And so we pushed it to July. So we do have that little bit of wiggle room if we realize that this is going to need to be a little bit more of a robust discussion. And so did you all receive, I just want to make sure, did you all receive that document that I sent out this week? Did you all get that? Okay, cool.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to kind of explain, what that is, kind of what the purpose of it is, go through how we're going to be using this. And then really, I just want to talk through how we're going to capture your all's recommendation and the information that we need, and then how you all would like to present it to the commission. I do have a slide deck that I can open where I have an example of how we've done it in the past, just to kind of provide some context on what this process actually is. If that doesn't work for you all, that's okay. We can kind of set this up however you all feel is going to be the most effective. We do need very specific information from you all, and so we'll kind of walk through what that is. But really, this is just, do you need more information from me before next Friday? And then how you would like to relay that information, and then what you want it to look like when we do go before the commission. So that's kind of what we're trying to accomplish today. This is a super informal meeting, so please interrupt me if something doesn't make sense or if you need more context. We're just trying to get an idea of how to capture the correct information. So if you could, I am going to ask that you do open the document that I sent you all. I'm not going to be sharing that document in this meeting, mostly because it is kind of messy. For those of you who are listening in, it will be made available in this packet, so you will be able to see it. But I am going to kind of be referencing it as we go through this. So just if you could have it open, if you do have questions about it, if something doesn't make sense, please interrupt me and we can get clarification, or if you need more information, that would also be good to know. So let me pull this up real fast. If you could let me know when you all see the presentation, that would be helpful.
Yep, I can see it.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so just the first couple of slides are just some context of like why we're here, what we're doing. I don't know your all's familiarity with the sentencing guidelines, the grid modifications that do occur, and why we are here today and having this conversation. And so back in like 1989, before this was the Criminal Justice Commission, this is what this organization did. This was the first thing that we were given by the legislature, were sentencing guidelines. And so the organization has grown, it has changed names since then. But this was the first thing that this organization was tasked with doing. And so it is a process where the legislature will pass a law where a crime is created or changed or modified. It then goes to the Criminal Justice Commission, where there is an effort to classify it and then maybe make it a person crime, which we'll kind of get into in a second. It then goes back to the legislature where they have to approve the recommendations made by the commission, and then it actually goes into law. And so what comes of this is we will submit we did submit a legislative concept. We will then submit it's kind of like a report, more or less, to the commission. We also create a bill or not the commission, sorry, the legislature. We then create a bill that goes before the legislature in the next session, and then they approve it. And that's the process. So this is just kind of the beginning of that process. If you did look at this document that I did give you, we are including 2025 crimes as well as 2026. And so kind of bundling them together so that we don't have to do this. We can do this kind of in the most efficient way of getting these all through at the same time. And so this is what the sentencing guidelines grid looks like. If you've never seen this, it is a presumptive sentencing grid. And so kind of goes, I will walk through this really quick. The colored squares indicate an individual's presumptive prison sentence based on where their criminal history intersects with the severity of the most serious crime at issue. And so I think I have boxes that come up. I do. So A through I is where an individual's criminal history is calculated, with A being the most serious. And so you read it left to right. And then the 1 through 11 is the seriousness of the crime ranking. And so that's one of the things that we will be asking your all's recommendation on, is the crime category, based on the seriousness of the crime. And then the yellow boxes are where the presumptive prison sentences lie. Okay. And so it is kind of in my opinion, kind of a confusing grid to read. So hopefully I don't know how familiar you all with this. Hopefully you've seen it before, but this is kind of where we're going to be focusing our work. And so if you read this, individuals with a grid score of A11 have the most severe criminal history and the most serious crime severity ranking possible. And then you kind of go this way and down for the less serious crime ranking and person crime classifications. So any questions on this? I'm sure most of you, the three of you, are familiar with this and how it works. But that's what we're here for today. And then this is just for record, this is where we get our authority to do this. This is in our rulemaking, where we have the ability. There's a lot of, I'm not going to go through any of this. There's a lot of words in here, but we do have the authority. These statutes in statute gives us the authority to do this. The kind of the biggest thing from this slide is this thing down here where it says key determination for new and modified crimes. It's ranked or change in rank, and then a person crime designation. So those are the three things that we're really going to be looking at as we look at these new crimes that have come through, or modified crimes as well. A few more, the crime seriousness rankings. This is where you can locate them. There are two separate ones. One deals with all crimes. The other one is very specific to drugs. And so there is a crime seriousness scale that is related to drug crimes, and then the person crime designation, both felonies and Class A misdemeanors. And so that's the level that we're going to be working with, is all felonies, Class A misdemeanors that have a presumptive prison sentence. Okay, so at this point, if you all, I have an example here of like how it's been done in the past, how these have been presented to the commission in the past. I can go through that with you all if you'd like, or we can talk about this document a little bit more in depth. I can stop sharing and we can kind of just have a discussion about the document that I sent out, and talk about how you all would like to give us this information. It's kind of up to you in terms of what context you need or what kind of a discussion you all would like to have about this.
I would say that I wouldn't mind seeing how it's been presented to the commission in the past, just
Okay.
for some information, but I'm happy to defer to what the other commissioners choose to do.
Okay. Does anybody have an issue? Oh, Amy, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was gonna agree. That sounds like a good plan.
Okay.
agree
Okay,
as well.
so, okay, perfect. I'll go through this. I did use some examples, kind of how we set up this information from what we did the last time. So there are some examples in here of bills that were passed. And we had it in 3 buckets, and we color coded these buckets in a way. And the reason why we did this was to provide context to the commission in terms of what sort of decision they were able to make. And so some of the crimes, the newer crimes that came in, they didn't really need a grid modification. I'll give an example of that. Some of them with the gray box, this is kind of the one where the commission has the most leeway, is where they can possibly make a grid modification. They have the ability to make that decision, or they can leave it as is. And so that's kind of how we tried to give context with those kinds of crimes, and allowed them to make a decision that they thought was appropriate. And so then the last one is there is a need for grid modifications, whether or not the bill directly says it, or it fits with other crimes that are quite similar in nature. And so there is a need for that. So this is how we have presented this in the past with the context. And so for you all, for kind of the discussion that we have next Friday, we would then bucket according to this, kind of these buckets with the recommendation of what change or no change you all thought was appropriate. So for example, we took HB 4156, and so this one didn't need any sort of change. It was already ranked and already designated as a person crime. And so the elements didn't change anything to how it was already classified. And so there wasn't any sort of action needed from the commission. This was presented this way. The commission said, okay. And with this context, and we made this kind of added just the language in that bill to what was already in the rules. And so there wasn't any sort of modification needed. And so for you all, if you felt like there wasn't necessary to make a change of something from this document that I gave you all, this is simply, we would just need information as to why or why not. Nothing needed to be changed. Okay. Here's an example. We did have SB 1553, and this was the consuming a controlled substance on a public transit. Added language to the bill that basically said consuming controlled substances on a public transit to the sorry, public transit vehicle to the conduct that could constitute the offense of interfering with public transit. So that was the language that was added. And so this was the information that we provided to the commission. And so whether or not they, to kind of give them context as to whether or not they wanted to make any sort of modification. The consideration that we put forward was classification of a person crime. This would be something, again, that we could build with this information, the effect of the modifications, what it did, and then I added kind of this subcommittee recommendation box where then we would put your all's recommendation with this to give the commission context. Okay. Does that make sense in terms of like kind of what we would need from you all in order for the commission to have the context they would need to make this decision or to agree with? Is this making sense? Okay. Perfect. And then we did have this last one where, likely necessary action. There was something that probably more than likely was going to need it because of the way that the bill was written. So HB 4043, interfering with investigation of offenses against animals. We did say why or why not. It was not classified as a person crime, and then the crime seriousness ranking was needed if it was a felony. And the reason why this one was specific to needing it is there were elements of if this is present, then it needs to be this. If this is not present, then it's this. And so gave this context to the commission so that they could make the recommendation as to whether or not, make the decision as to whether or not it was a designation of a person crime. Okay. And so we took this across every new crime and kind of bucketed them accordingly and presented the information in this way. So the other option for you all, first of all, are there any questions kind of on this approach? Okay. I'll stop sharing real fast and then I'll probably share again at some point. But the other option is to simply, for you all, is to simply go based on the document that you were provided, go bill by bill, right? Or crime by crime, and make the decisions as to whether or not there is a need for a crime category ranking or a designation of a person crime. Some of these have language, which I included directly from the bill, that we have to do it this way or we have to do this. There is one in here that's already included there's a crime category already included in it. So you'll see that language in there. So we could also just go down the list of what we need to go through, have conversations about the crime category or a person designation, and we can present it to the commission that way as well, just providing context as to why or why not. So we bucketed it that way in the past because this group wasn't a thing. And so they needed the appropriate context as to kind of why they were making these decisions or why it was necessary to, or what was necessary to consider. We can maybe skip that process with you all kind of having being the first layer of recommendations. So it's really just kind of up to you all how you want to structure this.
I would prefer the latter.
Okay.
If the three of us have time, we will take the time to review it, and if we come prepared to go just one after another and have discussion one at a time, I think that is the appropriate way to go.
Okay, so we don't need to bucket or anything like that. We can just kind of go through this document. Does anybody else I see some head nodding. That's kind of the best approach.
Yeah, I agree with Carl.
Okay. So what we can do then is, in terms for us then, I'll kind of build a PowerPoint with just maybe the shell of each bill so that we can kind of be looking at something if you'd like, kind of what we already have, if there's any language already existing. I know we'll have this document, but we can build it so that we can kind of go through it. We won't be updating it live. We will, Lindsay does a lot of the back end stuff, and so she'll be capturing the language that you all give us, so that then we can present it to the commission in that same way, kind of just crime by crime as we go down a list. We can give them context as to why or why not, if that works for you all. Does that sound? So we might be asking, you know, if there's a crime category, there's a person designation, and then we will kind of get context as to why or why not. And so that's kind of the language that I think for the commission to have an educated decision that we're going to have to capture. Which is why I said if 90 minutes next Friday isn't enough, that's okay. We can do a third meeting. If you all are going through this and reviewing it, and you're like, there's no way, we need to have some conversation, we can add a third meeting, if we need to. So, okay, so we'll do it that way. That's perfectly fine for us. I will say, for this document, take notes, make your own notes. Please don't share it with anybody. We do have to have the conversation and the discussion recommendations in a public setting. And so that includes email, the serial communication stuff. Please just kind of save all of those for the actual meeting. And then what will happen is we will have a master of this. We'll fill out all of your recommendations language, and then that will be part of the package that we release to the public as part of that meeting, if that makes sense. So just don't share it, don't communicate with each other about it. If you do have questions, or if there is any sort of error or something that's missing, just reach out to me, and I can send it out to the other two if there needs to be some sort of correction. So, the other thing, and I'm pretty sure I forgot to include it, it's in the agenda. I know Lindsay included it in the agenda, but in the email I sent you all, a link to our rules page. Do you all know how to get there, or do we need to send out a link to the rules page so that you can? It's kind of messy, I will say that. If you do know how to navigate it, you can go through and kind of see how it works. Do you want me to send that out in an email so that you all have it?
I would appreciate that.
Okay, cool. Okay, we can send it out after this for sure. So I apologize for forgetting that, if you do need that as a reference. Is there anything else that you all feel like is missing, or that you need from me, or that you feel like will be needed in next Friday in the discussion? Do you feel like you have enough information? Yeah.
I just have a question, and maybe it's premature anyway, which is, so I'm a non-voting member on the commission, right? And there's three of us on this group, and if my other two colleagues don't agree, I will certainly do my best to convince them, but I don't know if you envision taking a formal vote, or how that would work given my role on the commission.
That's a great question. Thank you. I did forget to bring that up. Yeah, so this does not require quorum, so there is no official vote. It is just a subcommittee. So that's a great question. So
okay,
yeah, so it's really just consensus that we're looking for. I do think, and I can clarify this next Friday if I need to, but I think if there is in this group in particular a disagreement, the commission would then make the decision as a whole body. We would present, this is what you could do, or this is what you could do, and allow them. We are just making recommendations. So thank you for asking that question so that I could clarify. It really just is consensus.
Perfect.
And capturing that. So
thank you.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, is there anything else, if you think of something as you kind of start to go through this, if there's something missing? I tried to make this as complete as possible. I did also, just for your all's information, that first tab is just all of them, all of the new crimes, just in case you were curious, all of the things that happened. The second tab is just the ones we're talking about because they're a Class A misdemeanor or a felony. And so that's kind of the difference. I just kind of wanted to give you a picture of like what went through in the last two sessions. So we are just focusing on that second tab. But if you are, as you start to go through this, if there is something that doesn't make sense or you do need more information, please reach out to me and we can work on getting you what you think you need. So this is kind of exciting because we've never done this. I am grateful for the three of you because otherwise it would be me and I don't want to do this. So I'm grateful that you all are willing to kind of have these conversations. This is good. I think this is going to be a much more fruitful process than how we've done it in the past, for sure. So any other questions or comments before we say goodbye and then we meet on Friday? Okay. I know that there's two people, members of the public, still here. We do have time. If any of you would like public comment, like to make public comment, you can. I do also want to remind you that you will have the opportunity to make public comment at the commission meeting in July, when these recommendations actually go forward, when the commission makes a decision. So just wanted to open that up. Okay, doesn't look like it. Okay. All right. Well, thank you all. Next week next week at the end, I'll go through a bit of a timeline to kind of so you all have an idea of what this looks like. But if after the commission everything goes well, these would go into effect in September. That's kind of the process. There's always a public comment period once you file, where you leave it open and then it goes permanent after about 40, I think it's 49 days. So that's the timeline. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. And again, just refrain from communicating with each other about anything. Just reach out to me and I can reach out to the rest of the group. So cool. All right. Have a great day. And I'll see you next Friday. We'll see you all.
Thank you.